You know, some of the best news I heard all weekend was out of Miami. I'm not talking about Dolphins practice. Tua doing some things down there, but I'm not talking about the Dolphins. I'm talking about the Canes. The entire spring, the entire summer, the entire preview magazine culture, everything about Miami has hinged on the health of DEriq King, right? Even we've talked about it. And so the health of DEriq King's knee has been assumed to be on the trajectory to get him ready to start the season. Having said that, and I will admit that even I felt like this, even I have looked at him and thought to myself, it's one thing to be able to play to start the season, but is he really going to be ready to fully utilize his skill set? And that includes mobility. I mean, is he really going to be in a place after tearing his knee in a bowl game? Is he really going to be in a position to do that? And I got to be honest with you, I have not believed it until this past weekend. And at practice, again, not much of significance happens in the first few practices that you can take with you and a month later say, remember when that happened in the first two practices? I knew then that this was in store. But with DEriq King, it may have happened. So over the weekend, they're practicing, and DEriq King, I wanted to say they were running some read type stuff, and he keeps. And he jukes a couple of defenders, and he just turned it loose. I mean, he fully throttled it right down the middle of the field and did what a fully mobile, 100% healthy quarterback would do. And so everyone goes crazy at Miami practice. And the beat reporters afterwards, I mean, any live microphone they had, they couldn't get enough of players and coaches, Manny Diaz included, just glowing about it. Now, you may listen and say, is this not foolish? The dude did one rep in practice. Well, if that's the way you look at it, yeah. But let's remember it and view it in the proper context here. No one has had any clue that the dude can run. He's told you he can. The returns out of Miami have been, we believe he's going to be 100%. But again, because we've seen so many people and heard so many people say it like that before, and we've watched him limp around noticeably when the season finally gets here, you just have to see it to believe it. I was skeptical. And so all of a sudden when you hear that, you say, wait a second. He actually did it? Like he actually does possess that ability? And then after practice, DEriq King says, almost in an I told you so tone, why are you so surprised? Oh, and by the way, when they asked him the knee brace question, he said, no, I'm not Stone Cold Steve Austin. I don't need knee braces, not for aesthetics and not for medical purposes. I'm not wearing knee braces. I don't need them. So he's told you he's recovered, and it looks, for the time being at least, that he is recovered. And so it's been hard for me to, in some ways, it's been hard for me to fully marry myself to the idea that Miami can win the Coastal Division because I have not been able to marry myself to the concept that DEriq King is going to be all the way back. Well, now I believe he will be all the way back. And with that in mind, I believe Miami absolutely can win the Coastal Division. Now, a lot of folks are going to get hung up on them opening against Bama and, in all likelihood, taking an L against Alabama. That's not what you should get hung up on. Watch them. And if they get beat 56-3, then yeah, that's not a good thing. But watch them after the Bama game. Because after the Bama game, you're looking at the schedule right now. They've got two games that are not layups by any stretch, but they're not going to be on the national radar. They play App State, they play Michigan State, they play a directional school. And then they dive back into conference play for a Thursday game, I want to say, against Virginia. None of those games are going to peak the national meter, but they're critically important. Because whatever we learn and whatever that coaching staff learns, DEriq King included, against Alabama, you then get to go to work correcting those things and getting yourself at as high a cruising altitude as you can for what comes on October 16th. With 9 days rest while the Tar Heels are playing their 7th game in 7 weeks, Miami goes to Chapel Hill for a game that could very well determine the status of the ACC Coastal. And if you all of a sudden tell me that DEriq King is going to be 100%, and you tell me they got a month and a half's worth of games to build up to that, plus they've got a total schedule dynamic advantage heavily tilted in their favor, I'm not conceding that this is just an overwhelming North Carolina favored to win the division sort of deal anymore. I think a lot of those odds have baked into them the skepticism about DEriq King. So that's the first thing I want you to focus on. But now I want you to think about what I have sat at this very table, or desk, I guess we call it a desk in our world. I've sat at this desk, and I don't know how many times over the span of the last few months told you the key to balancing out college football is Miami and Florida State reclaiming the state of Florida. And Texas A&M in Texas, and USC in the state of California and Texas, respectively. This could actually have a lot to do with that. They're not immediately connected, but now I want you to think forward a little ways. This is huge for Miami for obvious reasons in 2021. It helps them contend a lot more in the Coastal Division race. But number two, it helps them get their young quarterbacks in Tyler Van Dyke and Jake Garcia valuable development and repetition. But here's the third thing it does. It turns 2021 into a giant recruiting marketing campaign for Manny Diaz and Rhett Lashley and the Miami offense. We have watched it happen with Clemson. We have watched it happen with other programs where you get a star quarterback that is put on display for the nation to see. Other quarterbacks see it. Other receivers see it. And if they do what I think they're capable of doing this year, and if DEriq King does live up to that lofty expectation, and Rhett Lashley with now his first full year and second year overall into the program to be able to fully sink his teeth into this offense, if it performs at an optimum level, and every quarterback in America, including several in the state of Florida, are seeing it, and all that South Florida wide receiver talent seeing it, it could very well be what pushes a future Miami recruiting class over the top. And it could be what all of a sudden lands you one or multiples of elite quarterbacks and wide receiver talent. And it's not just wide receiver talent. A safety can look at Miami and say, oh, if the big boys are going there offensively, I can stay in South Florida and have a chance to win games at a high level. I'll stay home. Absolutely, I'll stay home. Only reason I was ever going to leave is because I didn't think I had that available to me down here. It could change a lot. And so you think about this, and in one hand, it's just one player and it's just 1 year. But on the other hand, it could be a much bigger domino than anyone realizes. So it just makes it mean so much more. When I say things like, well, they returned their top 3 receivers from last year. Well, that means as much as your quarterback and OC make it mean. It means as much as your offensive line makes it mean. I'm going to talk about the offensive line a little bit more later in the show. I mean, add Charleston Rambo from the transfer portal. What does it mean? It means as much as your offense and coordinator and quarterback can make it mean. And so it looks increasingly like that means a whole lot at Miami, maybe a whole lot more than we thought it would.